The altimeter reads 28,000 feet. The cockpit is shaking. Outside the canopy, the sky is a pale, frozen blue, so cold the moisture in the air crystallizes into needles of ice that streak past the windscreen like tiny bullets. Captain James Howard's hands are locked on the throttle. His P-51 Mustang is screaming through the air at over 400 miles per hour, engine roaring, propeller blades chewing through the thin atmosphere. Everything should be perfect. But it's not. The engine temperature gauge is climbing. Fast. Too fast. The needle swings past the red line, 240 degrees Celsius, and keeps rising. Howard feels the vibration through the stick. A metallic grinding sound cuts through the engine roar. Something inside the Allison V-1710 is dying. And he's over enemy territory. His wingman's voice crackles through the radio. Panicked. Breathless. Lead, my engine's seizing up. I'm losing power. Howard looks left. Sees the smoke trail. Another P-51, one of his squadron, is falling out of formation. The propeller is windmilling uselessly. The pilot is already turning back, gliding down toward France, toward captivity or worse. This isn't the first time. It's the 7th plane this week. Howard grips the throttle tighter. His mind races. The engineers swore this engine was bulletproof. The best power-to-weight ratio in the world. The reason America ruled the skies. And yet, plane after plane, they're dropping like flies. Not from bullets. Not from flak. From themselves. The gauge hits 260 degrees. The engine shudders. Howard feels the heat through the firewall. If he pushes forward, the engine will seize. If he turns back, the mission fails. If he bails out, he's a prisoner. But then, something insane crosses his mind. Something no pilot manual ever taught him. Something that sounds like suicide. He reaches for the mixture lever. And he does the one thing every instinct screams against. He cuts the engine. It's 1943. The skies over Europe are the most dangerous place on Earth. The Allied bombing campaign is reaching its peak. Thousands of B-17 flying fortresses and B-24 liberators thunder across the English Channel every day, carrying destruction deep into the heart of Nazi Germany. But they don't go alone. They can't. Without fighter escorts, the bombers are slaughtered by swarms of German Bf-109s and Fw-190s, agile, brutal, and merciless. That's where the P-51 Mustang comes in. Sleek, fast, deadly. With drop tanks and a laminar flow wing, the P-51 can escort bombers all the way to Berlin and back. It's the plane that turns the tide of the air war. The plane that makes the Third Reich's airspace a graveyard for the Luftwaffe. But there's a problem. The P-51's engine, the Allison V-1710, is overheating. Not occasionally. Constantly. At high altitude, under combat power, the engine temperatures spike beyond safe limits. Pilots report seizures, coolant leaks, catastrophic failures. Planes are lost not in dogfights, but on the return home. Engines quit mid-flight. Pilots ditch in the channel. Some are never found. The losses are mounting. And no one knows why. The Allison V-1710 is a marvel of American engineering. 12 cylinders. Liquid-cooled. Supercharged. It's been tested to destruction in labs. It's powered the P-38 Lightning and the P-40 Warhawk with few issues. So why is it failing now? The engineers at Wright Field are baffled. They strip engines down. Inspect every bearing, every piston ring, every valve. They find nothing conclusive. Some blame the fuel mixture. Others blame the supercharger. A few whisper about sabotage. Meanwhile, pilots keep dying. Squadron commanders file report after report. The language is clinical, but the frustration bleeds through. Engine failure at 27,000 feet. Pilot forced to bail out over France. Excessive coolant temperature observed during sustained combat power. Recommend investigation. Third engine loss this week. Morale deteriorating. The brass in Washington are worried. The P-51 program is critical. If the Mustang can't be trusted, the bomber offensive stalls. If the bomber offensive stalls, the war drags on. More lives, more years, more blood. But the solution isn't in a lab. It's in the cockpit. And it's about to be discovered by a pilot who refuses to follow the rules. Captain James Howard isn't a typical pilot. He's older, 29, ancient by fighter pilot standards. He doesn't drink with the younger guys. Doesn't chase girls in London. He spends his time reading engineering manuals, sketching diagrams, asking mechanics questions that make them uncomfortable. He's obsessed with why things work. And more importantly, why they don't. When his squadron starts losing planes to engine failures, Howard doesn't just file reports. He starts a notebook. He records every detail. Altitude, airspeed, throttle setting, mixture control, coolant temperature, outside air temperature, time in flight. He interviews every pilot who's had an overheat. He sketches the conditions. He looks for patterns. And he finds one. The failures always happen at high altitude, above 25,000 feet. Always under sustained combat power. Always when the mixture is set to auto-rich, the standard setting for maximum performance. But here's the thing, auto-rich means the engine is getting more fuel than it needs. The idea is to provide extra cooling. Excess fuel absorbs heat from the combustion chamber, keeping temperatures down. It's a design philosophy baked into every radial and inline engine in the American arsenal. Except at high altitude, it doesn't work. Howard runs the numbers. At 28,000 feet, the air is thin. The supercharger has to spin faster to force enough oxygen into the cylinders. The engine is working harder, not easier. And the fuel mixture, which is supposed to cool the engine, is actually flooding it. Too much fuel. Not enough air. Incomplete combustion. Wasted heat. Rising temperatures. It's a vicious cycle. The more power you demand, the more fuel the engine dumps in. The more fuel it dumps in, the hotter it runs. The hotter it runs, the closer it gets to catastrophic failure. Howard takes his findings to the engineering officer, a captain with grease under his nails and skepticism in his eyes. You're saying the mixture is wrong? I'm saying it's too rich. At altitude, we're drowning the engine. The engineer frowns. That's not how it's supposed to work. The manual says. I know what the manual says. But the manual was written at sea level. Silence. The engineer rubs his face. If you're right, then every pilot in the 8th Air Force is running their engine wrong. Maybe they are. And you want to do what? Lean out the mixture at altitude? That's insane. You'll burn the valves. You'll lose power. I'll test it. You'll kill yourself. Howard doesn't argue. He just turns and walks back to his plane. The next morning, Howard briefs his flight. 4 P-51s. A routine patrol over the North Sea. Nothing fancy. Just altitude work. High climbs. Throttle discipline. And one very dangerous experiment. His wingmen know something's up. Howard's always calm, but today there's an edge to his voice. A tension in his shoulders. We're going to 30,000 feet. Full combat power. But when I give the signal, I want you to pull back your mixture levers. Lean it out. Not a little. A lot. One of the younger pilots, a kid from Ohio named Williams, raises his hand. Sir, isn't that against? Yes. What if the engines quit? Then you glide home and blame me. Williams swallows. The other pilots exchange glances. But no one refuses. Howard's saved their lives before. If he says lean out the mixture, they'll lean out the mixture. They take off just after dawn. The English countryside rolls away beneath them, green fields, gray clouds, the silver ribbon of the Thames. They climb in formation, engines thundering, propellers slicing the cold air. At 25,000 feet, Howard's engine temperature starts to rise. 220 degrees. 230. The same pattern as before. He glances at his wingmen. They're all watching their gauges, all seeing the same thing. He keys the radio. "All right, boys. On my mark. Pull mixture back to auto lean. Don't overthink it. Just do it." A pause. "Mark." Howard pulls the mixture lever. The engine stutters. For half a second, he thinks it's going to quit. His heart clenches. His hand hovers over the restart. But then, the engine smooths out. The RPM steadies. The vibration fades. And the temperature gauge drops. 230 degrees. 220. 210. It settles at 205, well within safe limits. Howard stares at the gauge. He doesn't trust it. He taps the glass. It doesn't move. William's voice crackles through. "Lead, my temp's dropping too. I'm at 200 and steady." Another voice. "Same here. Engine's running smoother." Howard exhales. It worked. It actually worked. He keys the mic. "All right. Hold formation. We're taking this to 32,000 feet. They climb higher. The air grows thinner. The sky turns a deeper blue. At 32,000 feet, they're above most of the weather, above most of the fight. It's the realm of bombers and desperation. But the engines are purring. No overheating. No seizures. No failures. Howard runs the throttle up. Full combat power. The kind of setting that killed engines before. The kind of power that left pilots gliding home over enemy territory. The temperature climbs and holds. 210 degrees. Rock steady. For the first time in months, Howard allows himself to smile. When they land, Howard doesn't go to the debriefing. He goes straight to the engineering tent. The same skeptical captain is there, bent over a disassembled fuel pump. "It works," Howard says. The captain looks up. "What works?" "Leaning out the mixture. We just flew to 32,000 feet. Full power. No overheats. No failures." The captain sets down his wrench. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. The problem isn't the engine. It's how we're running it." Howard pulls out his notebook. Opens it to a diagram. He's drawn the combustion cycle, air, fuel, compression, ignition. He's annotated it with temperatures, pressures, and chemical equations. At sea level, the air is dense. The engine can handle a rich mixture because there's enough oxygen to burn it all. But at altitude, the air's thin. The supercharger compensates, but it can only do so much. If you dump in too much fuel, the oxygen can't burn it. You get incomplete combustion. Wasted heat. Rising temps. The captain studies the diagram. His skepticism is fading. So by leaning out the mixture, you're letting the engine breathe. You're matching the fuel to the available oxygen. The combustion is cleaner, cooler, more efficient. But the manual... The manual was written by engineers who never flew at 30,000 feet. Silence. The captain rubs his jaw. "If you're right, this changes everything." "I know. We need to test this. Officially. On the ground. With instrumentation." "Fine. But do it fast. Because every day we don't, we're losing planes." The tests begin within 48 hours. Engineers rig up a P-51 engine on a test stand. They simulate high-altitude conditions, reduced air pressure, extreme cold, sustained high power. They run the engine with the mixture set to auto-rich. The temperatures climb. The engine strains. Then they pull back the mixture. Lean it out. Just like Howard did. The temperatures drop. The combustion stabilizes. The engine runs cooler, smoother, and, surprisingly, produces more power. Because the fuel isn't being wasted. It's being burned. The engineers are stunned. One of them, a younger guy named Patterson, shakes his head. "We've been flying these engines wrong for 2 years. Another engineer, older, with grease-stained fingers and tired eyes, just laughs. "No. We've been flying them by the book. The book was wrong. The data is compiled. The reports are written. The findings are sent up the chain of command, from Wright Field to the 8th Air Force to the War Department in Washington. Within weeks, new operational procedures are issued. All P-51 pilots are instructed to lean out the mixture at high altitude. The change is immediate. Engine failures drop by 80%. Pilots report smoother operation, better fuel economy, and, most importantly, confidence. They trust their planes again. The impact ripples across the European theater. With reliable engines, P-51 squadrons push deeper into Germany. They escort bombers to targets that were once unreachable: Munich, Vienna, Berlin. The Luftwaffe, already bleeding from attrition, is overwhelmed. German pilots who once ruled the skies are now hunted in their own airspace. The P-51 becomes legend. The Cadillac of the sky. The plane that broke the back of the Third Reich's air defenses. And it's not just the European theater. The discovery spreads to the Pacific. P-51s deployed against Japan face the same high-altitude challenges. The same mixture adjustments are made. The same results follow. Overheating problems vanish. Pilots flying long-range missions over the Pacific, missions that once ended in ditched planes and lost lives, now return home safely. By the spring of 1944, the P-51 Mustang is the most feared fighter in the world. Not because of a new weapon, not because of a design change, but because a single pilot refused to accept failure. James Howard never seeks recognition. He files his reports, trains his squadron, and goes back to flying. But word spreads. Pilots in other squadrons hear the story. Mechanics whisper it in hangars. Engineers at Wright Field include his findings in technical bulletins. One day, Howard receives a letter from the War Department. It's formal, bureaucratic, but buried in the language is a simple acknowledgement. Your contribution to operational efficiency has resulted in measurable reductions in aircraft losses and improvements in mission success rates. Your initiative is commended. Howard reads it once, folds it up, and uses it as a bookmark in his engineering manual. But the real recognition comes from his squadron. The pilots who flew with him. The mechanics who trusted him. The wingmen who leaned out their mixtures at 30,000 feet because he told them to. They know. And that's enough. On May 8, 1945, the war in Europe ends. The bombers stop flying. The fighters are grounded. The skies over Germany fall silent. Howard walks out to the flight line one last time. His P-51 is parked in the sun, propeller still, canopy open. He runs his hand along the fuselage, the bare aluminum warm under his palm. There are no bullet holes. No battle damage. Just wear. Honest wear. He thinks about all the planes that didn't come home. All the pilots who bailed out over France, over Germany, over the cold North Sea. Some because of flak. Some because of fighters. But some, too many, because their engines quit. Not anymore. After the war, James Howard returns to civilian life. He doesn't write a memoir. Doesn't give interviews. He becomes an engineer for a small aircraft company in California. He designs fuel systems. He teaches young engineers the importance of questioning assumptions. He dies in 1995, at the age of 81. His obituary mentions his service, his medals, his quiet contributions. It doesn't mention the mixture lever. But the legacy endures. The lesson Howard taught, that operational success depends on understanding your machine, not just following the manual, becomes a cornerstone of military aviation training. Today, every pilot learns about mixture control, about the relationship between altitude, air density, and combustion efficiency. They don't always know where it came from, but they know it works. The P-51 Mustang itself becomes a symbol, not just of American engineering, but of adaptability, of pilots and engineers working together to solve problems in real time, under pressure, with lives on the line. In the decades that follow, the principal Howard discovered, that fuel mixture must be adjusted for altitude, becomes standard across all piston-engine aircraft. It's incorporated into automatic mixture controls, into fuel injection systems, into digital engine management systems that adjust fuel flow thousands of times per second. But it started with one pilot, one notebook, one moment of defiance at 28,000 feet. In 2015, a restored P-51 Mustang takes off from an airfield in southern England. It's painted in the colors of Howard's squadron, olive drab and sky blue, with a white recognition stripe on the nose. The engine is the original Allison V-1710. Rebuilt. Perfectly tuned. The pilot climbs to 25,000 feet. The engine is smooth. The temperature is steady. He reaches down and adjusts the mixture lever, pulling it back, leaning it out, just like Howard did 70 years ago. The engine purrs. And somewhere, in the cold blue silence of the stratosphere, the ghost of a pilot smiles. There's a truth buried in this story. A truth that goes beyond engines and altimeters and war. It's this. The manual is not the answer. The procedure is not sacred. The way things have always been done is not the way things must always be done. Progress, real, life-saving progress, comes from people who look at a failing system and refuse to accept it. Who ask why instead of just accepting what. Who risk everything to prove a simple, terrifying idea. Maybe we've been wrong. James Howard didn't invent a new engine. He didn't design a new plane. He just listened. To the vibrations. To the gauges. To the quiet, insistent voice that said something was wrong. And when he found the answer, he didn't wait for approval. He didn't wait for consensus. He reached down, pulled the lever, and proved it. That's the lesson. Not just for pilots. Not just for engineers. For anyone who's ever been told, this is how it's done. For anyone who's ever looked at a problem everyone else has accepted and thought, there has to be a better way. For anyone who's ever been afraid to act, because acting meant defying the manual, challenging the experts, risking everything. Howard's story is a reminder that the most important breakthroughs don't come from labs. They come from the field. From the cockpit. From the people who are living the problem, not just studying it. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is follow the rules. Sometimes, survival means doing the one thing no one expects. Turning off the engine. Leaning out the mixture. Trusting yourself when the manual says you're wrong. Because in the end, the manual doesn't fly the plane. You do.